right, I'd like to call this on here. I'd like to call the meeting to order, the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Anthony Reynolds,
Here.
Eugene Sullivan,
Here.
Stephanie Euler, here. Jonathan Smith,
Here.
Brian Venziano,
Here.
Debbie Koalas, here. David Hart, Aubrey Searway,
Here.
Hannah Weenie.
Here.
Okay, I'd like a motion for the approval of the minutes of October 6th.
Motion to approve. Second.
Okay, got it, Jody? Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? Chair comments. I've got one. The soccer team girls soccer had an outstanding season this year. Very impressed with how they stay in their own positions and pass the ball. MJ Ball's done a great job with these girls, absolutely no question. They didn't get as far as they wanted, but they got a long ways. I won't jinx the football team yet. We'll wait till the next meeting, but Carl Glantz doing the same thing with the football program. So. All right, and we have a agenda adjustment. Go ahead.
Committee members, when we get to personnel, we have an addition that I felt was timely and should be included. So, and I'll remind you again when we get there, but under L, personnel, employment, which is the chart under B, we will have a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation to employ Vicki Devine. It's Vicki with a Y. Devine is D-E-V-I-N-E. As special services administrative assistant, effective on or before December 1st. Ms. Devine is currently an ed tech in our middle school. And with that, it is my pleasure to turn the podium over for a bit to three of our amazing and awesome high school teachers. Committee members, you've heard us talk about Magic School and how we're using that platform for generative AI with lesson planning and assessments, and then eventually the opportunity to include students in with that learning as well. And I thought it would be helpful for our teachers to give you a visual as to what it's looking like in their classrooms. So I'm going to hand it off to our teachers. Thank you for being here.
All right, so thanks for having us here. We are 3 high school teachers who wanted to talk to you about how we're using AI tools in our classrooms just to empower our learners.
So I'm Betsy Trinkman. I am a science teacher here at Herman High School.
Nick Stahl, I'm also a science teacher.
Meg Garvey, I wear a few different hats in the high school and district, but I am an English teacher, and that's where I'm using AI in my classroom.
So before we dive into how we're individually using AI in our classrooms, we wanted to just give you a little bit of background information about what AI or what Magic School is specifically, as this is the tool that we're using. So one moment. Technical. Ironically. Okay, there we go. So we just wanted to give you some background information on what Magic School is before we dive into the different ways that we're using AI in our classroom. So first we want to highlight that it's allowing us to really have safe technology integration with our students. We are really able to control how the students are interacting with this AI. And so we're really controlling that content and helping our students become competent 21st century learners.
And part of that is helping them with responsible AI usage. So we have controlled rooms in Magic School AI where students get to kind of explore and learn these different tools that we've set up to enhance their learning, not replace our instruction. And this offers a personalized learning experience for our students. So we can do things like support differentiation in the classroom, have some individualized instructional practices, and also create some cool learning opportunities that require some innovation and creativity.
So first, I'm going to tell you about two different ways that I have integrated AI in my classroom. The first is just general resource creation. Magic School has really helped me turn some of my big, huge ideas into more meaningful, engaging assignments for my students. And specifically, I really used it to target ideas where there's still some confusion for my students. They haven't really gotten the idea yet. And so I turned to AI to help deepen their understanding and give them more authentic learning experiences. So there's an example up there, it's really small, but I went to AI and gave it some prompts about my honors physics class to create an activity for the students to more authentically interact with that material. The other way, and you'll hear a little bit more about student rooms from Megan in a bit, but I want to highlight how I've been using student rooms with my students. The first, I've created a research tool for my students, and that room has been designed for students to take really complex scientific research articles, and it will simplify them into words that they can understand so that they can integrate it into their own papers and things of that nature. So it really allows them to interact with complex scientific writing that's a little bit beyond them, and it puts it at their reading level. Another cool thing is a study bot room. So I created these for each of my assessments, and students before a big test can turn to it, and it acts as like a quiz parent for them. They can ask it questions, and it asks them questions, and they give the answer, and the AI will tell them if they're correct or if they're incorrect, and it'll give them feedback as they continue to strengthen their understanding for the test. And then we'll turn it over to Nick, who's using AI in cool ways as well.
Yeah, sure. I'm going to sidestep just a little bit because I am using Magic School quite a bit like the others. Just a couple of quick examples. Just today, I used the chatbot, Reina, to help me recreate a skeletal system case study that we use in anatomy and physiology. I found that it's the best one available, but it's also widely available. So it takes like 10 seconds to accidentally stumble into 1,000 pre-completed and well-answered versions of that case study. So I gave it the original case study and some information about what I wanted to target for that with the skeletal system, joints and whatnot, and it helped me write a new case study, like completely original. So no answers for that one on Quizlet. This is more specific to a STEAM Gaming Concepts class that we just created this year for exploring some elements of game theory that can be applied to day-to-day life, things like business, politics, et cetera, like how game theory can be used to do day-to-day tasks. But we also explore careers in the gaming industry. One thing about that STEAM class, though, is it's not meant for hardcore computer nerds. It's meant for people that are interested in exploring those ideas, so beginner-friendly. So what Rosebud AI does is it lets you start with a template, a game format, or an app of some sort, and then you can give it prompts, just like a chatbot. And what it will do is it'll first talk back to you. It'll say how it's interpreting that prompt, but then most importantly for us, it will show you in like traditional coding language, Python, like prompt line code, how it's going to try and do what you asked it to do. Then it throws that up immediately on the screen. They can play around with it and see if it's working the way that they want it to. And if the answer is yes, they can then look at that code and see how it was done. And I'm really excited to see if anybody really sinks their teeth into it. They could get a pretty good, deep understanding of coding language way beyond what we're actually going to cover in class just from playing with this tool. If you go to the next slide, you can see like it starts with a sort of a simple example game, and then through a series of prompts, you ask it what you want to add. I tried to get it to change the main character into a blue and gold. And then it told me, as you can see in that last window, how it was interpreting what I was asking for, and then what it was planning on doing. And I haven't quite got to that stage in the image, but eventually, like I said, it will show me the actual line code for how it's going to accomplish that. And then I get to play test and see if it worked right before I decide to keep it or dump it and start over. We also have GDevelop is very similar, where you're building an app, usually games, like because that's engaging for students, but it also will do just smartphone apps or computer apps. And it has one advantage where there are many, many tutorials where an interactive lesson on how to do a certain thing involved with software development and get better at it, along with those just templates that you can play with, like in a sandbox mode.
So in my English classroom, I'm using AI in a couple different ways than in the science classroom. One of those ways is kind of a secondary writer's workshop feedback style. So as we can see here, this is what the student interface looks like. I know it's kind of small, but what I had done preemptively was I prompted it with my rubric, my product descriptor, any kind of small things that I would be looking for in my students' writing. And students can upload their writing right into this tool, and it will give them some pretty individualized feedback. So it has areas of strength, areas of weakness that they may need to look at, and just some general writing mechanics information for them to use. So this really complements their instructor's feedback and kind of gives them that additional layer of support to kind of reinforce what we're doing in class. It also helps with skill development so that they can independently know how to revise something and identify patterns in their own writing. And then for me, on the other side, where I get to kind of input everything, it helps me provide some really targeted writing support for my students because I get to kind of pick and choose how it gives them feedback and what the feedback is. And I also have two people right here. Another really cool way that I have used this is as a research assistant in my AP Lang class. Students worked collaboratively together in groups to create a digital resource for everyone to include really key links or quotes from our Nature Writers unit. And so I got to prompt exactly what I wanted them to look for. It gave them a preview of what they needed to do. And then the smaller one on the left is an example of kind of what they created. And what they would do is they're using each other's curations in order to write an extended writing response. So what this does is provides curator research support. So the students don't have the entire internet at their fingertips. I am loading it with the thematic elements I'm looking for, the types of resources I'd like them to look at, and making sure they're relevant, credible, and academic. It also helps my students to collaborate in resource building, so they can synthesize all of the information that they are learning into one place that's kind of like a research toolbox for all of them to use, and they did it themselves, so there's some ownership over that. And then it also provides some contextual understanding. So not only are we looking at a piece of literature in our nature writing, we're also connecting it to real-world psychology or philosophy, environmental studies, things that will really deepen their analysis and their knowledge. And then something that I found very cool to find was the sophisticated monitoring system that Magic School specifically provides us. So if you see up in the corner, right here. Magic School AI, if I'm using a room, lets me click on every single student and see exactly what they were doing and how they were interacting with the tool that I've created. So it'll tell me things like, related to my learning goal, it's my students' progress is they're developing or their engagement level was high, and I get to see the exact conversation they're having with the AI. It also has an interesting summary here where it tells me strengths, improvements, but also specifically behavioral notes. So if my students are inappropriately using the tool, I can address that in class to kind of help build that safe, ethical use of AI in my classroom. And so we can all have those conversations about digital citizenship.
And so some key takeaways from that, we just wanted to highlight that Magic School has really provided us for the opportunity to make sure our kids are safely interacting with AI, allowing them to actually create some of those big skills that we want to have that as they go into society. So problem solving, critical thinking.
And we've also really found that Magic School and AI has helped make teacher time a little bit more efficient. And we're able to take things that already exist and really enhance the quality of our lessons and resources that we have access to. And we're also finding that using this in our classrooms and preparing our students for the future is really the most authentic technology integration that I think we could do. And it's really spanning that digital literacy across content and across curriculum here. And I think the biggest takeaway or note that we wanted to make was that we really see AI as not a replacement for our teaching or their learning at all. What we're really finding is it's a valuable educational tool. And we're finding a lot of success in using it. And we can't wait to continue to use it.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you. Sit up here.
Before we send Nick and Megan and Betsy off, school committee members, does anybody have any questions?
Will the presentation be posted so we can put in folders?
We can certainly do that.
There's just a lot of information I'd like to see.
Yeah, of course. There are some links there too, just to the platform.
What's the student response been? It's been pretty good.
I mean, I think so in my classes, and some of the things that they are, specifically in that, the research assistant one, some of the things that they are coming up with are beyond what I've seen other years students doing when they just are on the internet, like kind of free for all. I've also really seen that they know how to communicate with AI. I had students who were not happy with the links that they gave them, and so they told them, and they got some better links, more academic sources. So in my classroom, I'm seeing that heightened level of understanding.
And for me, I'm seeing high student engagement. So the study bot that I talked about, that wasn't a requirement for students. It was just an option as an additional thing to prepare for tests. And I had a number of students use that resource to prepare for the test, which was really exciting. And it was funny because the first time around, I had like fewer, and then the next time around, almost all of them used it because they realized and their classmates told them about how valuable the resource was.
So they're using it for tests?
Not for tests, as a study tool. So before a test, after they've completed the study guide, they can go in and use it like you would use a friend to quiz you before a test. So they can say, I'm taking a test over this, ask me questions. And so it asks questions that it think might be on the test. So can you tell us what carrying capacity is? And then the student will type what they think carrying capacity is, and then the definition, and then the AI will either say, that's correct, or you don't quite have it, you were missing this piece, can you try to think of? And the thing that's been really cool with the study bot is it doesn't straight up give them the answer, it keeps prompting them until they get the answer themselves. It's pretty cool.
I had the opportunity to attend the MSMA, the assembly, and there was a massive concern about using AI and that it was going to be used as a replacement, not a tool. So I don't know if you have anything that you could speak to along those lines.
I mean, I think it's educating educators on how to actually use it, and also educating students on how to be responsible. And so I think really focusing on digital literacy, digital citizenship, and even like, how is this going to help you in your future job with like coding and things like that. I think that that is the avenue in which we approach it. And I think we're doing that work right now to make sure that that happens.
How are our computers able to deal with this? And I only say that knowing that I have a senior that her computers struggled and I had to buy a personal device to keep up with some of the college classes she's taken.
I haven't had any issues with students accessing Magic School. It's specifically the way that we interact with it with our students is they can't get onto Magic School unless we open the room for them. So we post it onto Google Classroom and then they can access it. And that's the other really cool thing about it. With them only being able to access it through a teacher link, they can't just go back and say, oh, well, I use Magic School for science, so now I'm going to use it in a class where the teacher doesn't want me to. They can only access it for the class that's designed, and with the rooms that each of us have created, we can shut them down at any point and say, okay, you're done studying for this test, you don't need to access this, and if students try to go back to it, they can't access it anymore.
That's helpful, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there a process to double check accuracy?
in terms of like yes, absolutely. So I think that's a learning curve with our students, as well as encouraging them to check accuracy. And so if it's giving them links and things of that sort, or of that nature, check that link and make sure that is actually something you want to use along those lines.
Very related to those like digital citizenship skills that we want them to have is always double check, always, use you, not the computer. And so I think reinforcing that is something that we've all been really focusing on in our classrooms as well.
Yeah, I'd say within 20 to 30 minutes of trying to use any of these tools, you learn really quickly to look carefully at what it's made before you attempt to use it. And it's funny you mentioned the links, because I'm starting to suspect that many of these are trained on like old versions of internet stuff, because notoriously it will feed me fantastic looking links for resources and things. Every single one of them is dead or doesn't work or has been taken down. So I have learned to carefully look at any kinds of links in particular, and content. I only use it to refine things that already exist, because I need to be able to figure out if it got it right or not before I can use any of it. It's definitely still a little bit risky to take content that I don't have a background in and ask it to generate materials for that. I can't really do that because I don't trust what it's making. Can't proofread it for mistakes.
I was thinking about, I hear the concerns about replacing your efforts, but I think about it as an assistant, when you were describing how, it can take in a student's writing and then offer tips. Here's the theme, here's some things you want to think about grammatically. I think of that as like a teaching assistant, in a way. And so not only does it make your time more efficient, but probably just complements what you're trying to do and supplements your time.
Another good example of perfect what you're saying is it might be a skill issue, but AI has not saved me any time, but it has improved some of the results that come out. For instance, we do, for years, Anatomy Again has been doing a small lesson as part of a unit where we do medical illustration as a career. It's a very overlooked but profitable and fulfilling career to make diagrams for textbooks, pamphlets, little posters that you see at the dentist's office, which are made by people who get paid very well to sit at home in a house coat sipping tea and be drawing a femur or something like that. But for years we've been doing it as like a sketch, and they're still going to do that, like a hand-drawn one. But this year I asked the brain and chatbot, hey, is there anything I'm missing here, like any blind spots? And it suggested, why don't you incorporate digital art tools, because that's probably more likely to be used by a professional now, some sort of digital format. I was like, yeah, that's brilliant, and I can't believe I didn't think of that myself. So let's talk about what sort of, are we talking about Wacom tablets, or are we talking about just mouse and keyboard? And it kind of helps me explore and guide me where to look for what are some digital versions of that old hand-drawn or illustration kind of technique. So yeah, that took longer, quite a bit longer than it would have otherwise, but I think the product was improved. Yeah.
And I want to highlight too, with it being a research assistant, we're also spending a lot of time on the back end making sure the research assistant is trained for exactly what we want it to do. As Megan highlighted, you can tell it exactly what skills you want it to have, so that when it is interacting with the students, it's doing what we need it to, not a whole bunch of other stuff that we haven't asked for.
I appreciate that what you're hearing from our teachers is that we're really promoting the importance of student voice and student ownership of work. And so in no instance have you heard them say they turned their kids loose just to use it to create or fabricate something of their own. And I appreciate that, because that's the skill set that we really want students to take out into the world with them, whether they're going into a college class and still owning their voice and owning their work, or they're going into the business world. We know that businesses will expect that students know how to use AI and use it fairly and ethically, and to be learning that under the direction of teachers that they care about, teachers who are taking this very seriously. I can't think of anything better.
We're still at the Herman High School office, and they're going really fast. All fall teams except football have finished their season. One cross-country athlete finished in the top 100 at Coney High School during states. Golf went to states, and one of our girls got 7th overall. Girls soccer were runners-up at states. this recent Saturday, and football has their semifinal game this Saturday at Lewiston at 5 against Lowell.
The Reach Across America convoy will be stopping at the high school on December 7th for a ceremony presented by JRTC in our high school. There will be a massing of colors, a color guard, and speeches. The Key Club raised $1,300 for Breast Cancer Research Foundation, and this weekend Key Club members will travel to Camp Sunshine for a weekend leadership seminar. NHS is partnering with the Herman Middle School to start tutoring middle school kids after school, and JRTC assisted with the election last Tuesday. Thank you. Could we try to cast it? Last time I tried to cast and one of the teachers tried to.
What if one of us holds the laptop and brings the other with?
So last minute, blocked it.
Did you say ask me I?
I mean, I might have.
Yeah. I'll be quick then. I'll be quick.
Goodness.
Thank you. Okay. Last April, I had an exciting opportunity to apply to 4-star leadership with 4-star General Tommy Franks. And I really wasn't going to apply, but I had some phenomenal people here at the high school that really pushed me to do it. And I ended up getting into the program, and I traveled to Oklahoma by myself for a week-long leadership conference. So this is kind of an overview of the week. We've been asked to all share presentations with our community when we got home, just to show what we really learned, what we did there, and just to show that we can public speak. Okay, thank you. So General Tommy Franks believes that there are 4 core components to leadership. He calls them the 4 C's. That is character, common vision, communication, and caring. Thank you. I flew in on July 12th, and at the time there was only 6 of us. And up on the screen, I've written Maine, Alaska, Dubai, and Jordan. So this conference wasn't just for high school seniors in the U.S., but for all across the country. And so us 6, there were 4 of us girls, 1 from Maine, 1 from Alaska, 1 from Dubai, and 1 from Jordan. And that night, we all went out to dinner together at Texas Roadhouse. And we were told before going to the conference that we were going to learn about a lot of cultural differences. And we really did that. No one touched our phones, our phones sat in our purses, and we all just really talked, getting to know each other. And we learned that there were a lot of cultural differences between tipping, dinner etiquette, and even dating. So that's why I wrote those 4 states and countries up there, just because it really opened my eyes to how there's so many different cultures. And it was really cool getting to meet people and see what their experiences back home were like. July 13th, everyone else joined us. I wrote 76 up there because I was introduced to 76 other high school students all across the country. There were 1,200 of us that applied, and 76 were selected. So that's pretty cool to be selected, and you meet the next top 76 leaders in our country. We also talked about our first component being caring, which is really about empathy and connection. And General Tommy Franks told a story about how you have to pull as hard as you push, and that is what leadership is like, and that's what connection is like. And how when he was 5, he was helping his dad saw, and he says you have to pull it as hard as you push it. And what that really means is you have to pull your people close to you before you can then let them go. So that's why I kind of wrote that up there, just because that really, since I heard that, that's always just kind of stuck with me. And I think that's a phenomenal way to think about leadership. We also met Green Beret Special Forces Nick Lavery. He was our opening keynote speaker. And if you see on that picture, he is an amputee. And he is the first and only below-the-knee amputee to be allowed back into service. So we put a lot of time and dedication into be able to coming back. So it was really great to hear from him. And a key thing I took from him was he said, greatness will remain nothing more than a dream because desire alone produces nothing. And I found that very touching and moving because he could have, stopped his career in the military once he got injured, but he didn't. He was on his 3rd deployment, and he was 2 weeks out from being able to finally come home when he was ambushed by the Taliban. And he continued to, despite everything, he went back, he trained harder, he worked harder, and to this day, he is still a Green Beret. So it was really cool to hear from him. Common vision. I really like common vision because it's really about knowing your audience and knowing what you're selling. So common vision is really about having a goal and how you're going to reach that goal. So if I were to say my common vision between me and you guys as a board, our common vision is to help better our school and community. That would be our common vision. So that's just another core component of General Tommy Franks. We also heard from Manuel Neal, and he talked a lot about political polarization, which I think we see today, especially in our youth more than ever, how there's such a divide. And when there's such a divide in the political side, it really just drives 2 different sides, and it creates a lot of hate and anger. So we talked a lot about that. But he also talked a lot about finding your North Star, which is really about it's about the anchor that kind of grounds you. You want to know your why. Because before you can really achieve what you want to achieve, you have to have a why. So I found that really cool. We also went to the Oklahoma City National Memorial and Museum, and we got to learn about the bombing that took place, which was a home terrorist attack. So that was really, I'd say, really touching and moving to hear about that, and just how the community really stepped forward to help out during that time. While we were in Oklahoma City, we went to the city capitol. We met Senator Brett Howard, and he said, don't let outside influences take over what you do. And when he was talking about that, he talked about how when he was in high school, he got into a little bit of trouble. And I just kind of took that with me because I wouldn't ever want, outside people or friends, associates just to, influence what I do. I'd rather be my own person because who you hang out with is really who you are. We also ate dinner in the Rotunda with, my 76 other new friends. And we heard from Attorney General Gunther Drummond. And he said something, as long as I can look in the mirror. And he spoke as, when he was Attorney General, he had to make a lot of difficult decisions. But he said as long as he could look in the mirror and still like who he saw, he knew that he was making the right decisions. So I really liked that he said that. So that's why I included that. This is just some pictures of the memorial. I have 901 up there because that was the time before, that was a minute before the attack, and then 903 marks the minute after the attack. And it's kind of Oklahoma going through the first door and changing their chapter in their history. July 15th, we covered communication. And I heard a great thing that 90% of conflict is a miscommunication error, which I believe in more than ever, especially running our JRTC program. Miscommunication is probably one of the most difficult things to overcome because it happens so easily. So I definitely believe that 90% of conflict or problems is a miscommunication error. Also heard from Major General Rita Aragon, and she was the first female commander to command the state's Air National Guard. And I found it really cool to hear from her because I have dreams to become a pilot in the Air Force. So to hear from her and for her to be the first, female commander, I thought that was pretty cool. I also received one of her gold coins to add to my collection of coins. So I thought that was cool. And the thing she said to me most, I asked her a question. I said, well, how did you deal with men undermining you, especially, you talked about that a lot in your speech. And she just said, you don't want anyone to tell you when you cannot do something because you are a girl. You don't doubt yourself, but most importantly, don't let them underestimate you. And I really liked that response. She's very, very posed, very calm. She's very, very grounded, and I really liked that. We heard from Jet McCoy, who talked a lot about integrity. And the biggest thing from him is he said, whatever a person is full of will spill out when bumped, and only you can choose how you respond in situations. And I really like that, because that's also really about character. Who you are is really who you are underneath, and when you're bumped or agitated, who you are is going to spill out. So I really like that. Also, July 15th, we did Ethics Round 1, which is kind of like a debate, but it's more so I'm not arguing with another side. We can agree on the same stance, but we just got to have a conversation about it, and you get points for how many different things you bring up. And then we did Speeches Round 1. And the biggest thing I learned going through is I was pretty nervous. And one of my counselors, who was just a year older than me, said, be confident and fierce and no one will doubt you. And that's kind of what I'm doing up here. As nervous as I am, I'm just trying to stay as confident because I mean no one will doubt me. And both ethics and speeches were in the running for scholarship opportunities. We also met Michelle Smith, who is a 2-time Olympic gold medalist. And she said something that really just stuck with you about, really just goes to show your character. And it's not about what you do, it's about who you are. And I like that because she talked about a lot how she liked to change people's lives and how many people changed hers. So I found that pretty moving. On one of our last days at the conference, we traveled 2 hours to Hobart, Oklahoma, where General Tommy Franks grew up. And that's also where the General Tommy Franks Leadership Institution and Museum is held, and they're the ones who funded this leadership opportunity for us. So we toured his museum, we went to the Kiowa County Historical Museum, which is a native tribe that was founded in Oklahoma, and to this day they still have a pretty big community up there, and they actually made us all lunch, and we got to do a traditional friendship dance with them. So I thought that was pretty cool. And this is just some of the stuff from the museum that I thought was cool. His uniform and his collection of coins, which I'm proud to say that Herman High School jersey coin is up in that display, or will be as soon as it gets there. This was the last day of the kind of week-long celebration. And we talked a lot about character. And the biggest thing that was said by the man running our program, David Green, was he said, if you tell someone you're going to do it, you're going to get it done, because no matter our values or where we stand, we stick to our words. And I thought that was pretty important, because I'm someone that's very big on if I make a commitment, I'm going to follow through and honor it. We had speeches round 2 and ethics round 2, and then we got to hear from General Tommy Franks himself. And the biggest thing he said is, well, what are you going to do about it? And he was asked that same question on September 9, 2001, when the second plane had hit the second tower. And he was asked, well, what are you going to do about it? And he said today that that is still the hardest questions he's ever been asked. And then fast forward 15 years later, he noticed that there was a decline in our generation's leadership abilities. And he was asked the same question, well, what are you going to do about it? And that is when he founded the General Tommy Franks Museum and Leadership Institute. So that's why I included that up there, because that's kind of like the founding, opening door to how I was able to complete this leadership thing. And he wrote, together, everyone achieves more. That's what TEAM stands for. Another thing I love that he said to us was the easy bus left yesterday. Just to show that, there's no really easy way out. If you want to get stuff done, you're going to have to do it the hard way. And then at our closing dinner, we heard from Super Bowl, the 49 champion, Spencer Tillman. And he said, sometimes confidence crumbles like this cup tower, but you need to build that road back up. And I'll show you what that means in a minute. That was me up there building a cup tower because he needed 2 volunteers. So I was like, you know what? I'll go up there and I'll try to build this cup tower, and it did crumble. So I really like that analogy that confidence is like towers. Sometimes they crumble, but you just have to build them back up. And I'll leave you with this last piece, kind of from my trip. General Tommy Franks likes to say, be feisty and stay feisty. And feisty is an acronym for a way that you should live your life and how you should be a leader. And the F stands for get your focus, always have a focus and a goal. E is put your energy behind your focus and you'll achieve more. I is don't lose integrity because you'll never get it back. S stands for solve the problem and don't make more, just try to achieve it. T is take responsibility and take blame when no one else will. So if you're the cause of the problem, take responsibility, but if it's sitting there unblamed, just own up to it. And the Y is yes, I do windows, because you should always be willing to do the stuff that no one really wants to do. It just has to get done. Are there any questions?
Wow. How do you stay on the ground? That is one heck of an experience.
It was pretty cool. I'm really glad I was pushed to apply to it because I really wasn't going to. And then Major and First started talking me into it, so I was pretty happy I did. I didn't think I'd get in. I was like, no, I won't, but I was so happy I did. I met 76 other incredible young leaders. It was pretty cool because no matter where I go to college next year, I'll have at least one person wherever I go. So that's pretty cool.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions?
Congratulations, awesome presentation.
Thank you.
I just have to ask as a mom, that wasn't a direct flight. Did you have to go through multiple airports?
I did, and my poor mom over here was sitting freaking out. And actually, we got caught in a really bad storm, and the runway at Oklahoma was flooded, and there was lightning. So next thing I know, we're being landed in Kansas, and they're like, we're in Kansas, but we're keeping you on the plane because we don't know what's going to happen. And I called my mom, like, hysterically crying. I'm like, I can't do this because it was my first ever time flying alone. Yeah, we had 3 stops and stuck in Kansas for about 2.5 hours, but we made the most of it.
Okay, subcommittee reports. You got the minutes. Any question on, we'll do finance first. Any questions on the minutes or anything? All set? I like what you sent us, Jamie. It's I have to hold my iPad a little diagonal to get it to read, but it's a lot more easy to do it at home than versus at the desk anymore. Okay, policy. Deb, you got anything, or John?
Yeah, have the minutes here. We met on the 27th. It was Debbie, myself, Dr. Sargent, Dr. Davis, Mr. Freeman, Ms. Panett, and Ms. Higgins. One edit I think will need to be made to this. I was present for this one. It was the September meeting. I joined by phone, so for the record, wherever that gets published. We got something ready for second read, temperature standard for schools, just to be sure we're in line with legislation. Includes recommendation to remove a statement about rescheduling exams during excessive heat, adds new wording to the final paragraph. I think we'll see that later. Looked at abolishing a JJA, co-curricular philosophy for HMS. It's more of a philosophy, not a policy. And this is addressed elsewhere in the middle school handbook. Then we reviewed several policies related to physical restraint and recommended abolishing 3 redundant policies that were all contained in more updated policies, JKAA-R and JKAA. And these policies will remain as written. And then a policy for first read consideration was JOA, list of students' names, recommended to abolish. The requirement to honor FERPA is addressed in KLMA, relations with military agencies. It's redundant to maintain both policies. So I think that was it.
Perfect. Curriculum and technology.
That one's me. So we met on November 5th. I attended with Dr. Sargent, Principal Walsh, David Hart, and Alex Bridges. IT Director Alex Bridges reviewed the 3-year technology plan. Updated items include an earlier timeline for copier bid proposals and inclusion of a refreshed schedule for classroom smart boards. Dr. Sargent provided an update on the curriculum renewal plan. The Social Studies Committee, co-chaired by Brian Walsh and Dr. Sargent, met on November 6th to begin their review. Library media specialists at the elementary and middle level are beginning to include digital literacy lessons in their work with teachers and students. Dr. Davis and the media specialist will visit an area school to see their library arrangement and makerspace lab. An accelerated math grade 4 program is in the works for September 2026. The October Professional Development Day was well received. Mr. Walsh noted that 2 Magic School training sessions were provided and well attended. A presentation on Magic School and how teachers are using it in their lessons will be presented at the November school committee meeting. I think we saw it. There were questions about science and reading test scores that will be addressed at the next meeting.
Perfect. And we don't have anything on negotiations yet to report, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Public comment. If anybody would like to speak, I've been fairly liberal with public comment, so just make sure you don't use anybody's name or position, and we'll go from there. All right.
Hello, everybody. My name is Brett Danforth. I live here in Herman. I have basically my whole life, and I'm a local owner of a business, and I have 3 children that are in the school system, 1 in the high school and 2 in the middle school. I'm actually here tonight to talk from a different perspective, though. It's more or less a meet and greet and an establishment of some communication lines between a couple of different groups in the community. Number 1 being you all, and the group that I'm representing tonight is the GHCACC, nail that one, Greater Herman Community Athletic Complexes Committee. And that's a standing subcommittee underneath the town council. The committee itself was actually established a number of years ago, I'd say probably close to 20 years ago, and in a way to advance our athletic complexes in the area for our students in our community to take advantage of. They accomplished a ton. They were able to build a lot of different facilities, or build out a lot of facilities and enhance those facilities. And recently we've been coming back around the bend to revitalize this committee to allow us to continue the great momentum that our community has in developing these athletic complexes and or facility upgrades to what we already have existing in this community. So again, I'm kind of here as a meet and greet. This is going to be an opportunity where over the course of time we're going to have special projects that we're working on, and we have the funding for this project, for these projects, comes from all private donations, as well as an already established account within the town that was funded by 3 donors. And one project that we're working on, which is kind of why I wanted to broach the subject this evening, that we're moving forward with, we've donned it as a priority for our organization, is to develop and expand the press box at Pottle Field in a way that would allow for multi-use space and to enhance the sounded like an evil spirit, but to enhance that facility to allow us to use it in the capacity that we should for the types of events that we're hosting now. I think we've seen it over the past 10 years how well we can host, and now with our turf, we're hosting not just football games, but we're hosting many, many different leagues, soccer, lacrosse, and we're having state championships. So the facility there, the press box needs to be updated. Right now, there's not enough space. You have opposing coaching staffs in the same facility sitting right next to each other. That doesn't really enhance the competitive environment. You also don't have a place for our referees, whether it's soccer, football, field hockey, to go in between the halves and the quarters, to have a private space to be, to converse. And we're also not adequately built out for storage of the equipment that we have. And a lot of it stays outdoors throughout the year, and that's going to degrade the assets that we do have and actually cause us to have to replace them more quickly. So this build out is something that we're very excited about. We have the designs already done. We're looking forward to getting to a point where we're going to move forward and hopefully have the process actually completed by the end of next summer. When we get closer to the actual starting of construction, I would imagine we'll be back to talk to you all as well to make sure that there's full transparency about the projects that are going on, what the impact would be to the facilities or the campuses that we're working on and around, and also make sure that there's any questions addressed that need to be before we get to that point. We're a very passionate group. Barry Pottle is, I would say, the leader of said group. Barry is very passionate about Herman and the greater Herman community and wants to continue to give back. I'm also a voting member of the committee, and Mike Hopkins is as well. And all of us share that passion to want to continue to give back to not just the kids that are in our school system, but also the members of our community. So the project that's coming up, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have, but again, the purpose of tonight was basically just to say, yes, this project is coming, but also open up these lines of communication between the school committee and the GHCACC to make sure that we can address any needs that maybe you have in the future or things that aren't necessarily going to be fully funded and can use some assistance. So that's what I'm here to do. I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any, but truly just need to agree this evening.
Thank you, Brett. Anybody have questions for him? We appreciate your efforts, I'll tell you that.
I'm happy to go doing it. So thank you for the time. I do appreciate that. And one more, congratulations. That was very well done.
Thank you.
Yes, excellent. Excuse me. So have a great night, everybody.
Thanks. Well, that was an easy public comment. I like that. Okay, business finances. We have to, you want to do these as a block, or does anybody want to do them separate?
Can I ask a question about those,
Sure.
Chair, please? Because I don't believe it states in policy that we have to actually vote on those. I think that we should absolutely acknowledge them, but I'd question if we need to vote on them because they've already happened. There's nothing we can do. So I'm asking point of order, do we even have to vote?
I don't have a clue, so.
So in reviewing our department policies, policy KCD, which is public gifts and donations to the schools, states, the committee will officially acknowledge the gifts at a committee meeting and thank the donors in writing. And each time we've had donations that have been listed on the agenda, Jody prepares thank you letters and those are mailed the following day. Sometimes people will use those as part of their tax return and they want to be able to show that they've donated to a school community. So for that reason, it's been listed. It certainly could be more of an acknowledgement and not an approval if that's your preference.
That's what I would think you could do, Tony, is just thank all those donors.
We have a motion. Oh, you mean don't make a motion, just thank the donors.
Yeah, I mean, I get that policy says that we need to acknowledge it, and I don't know why we would need to vote. Votes are irrelevant. That money's already come in. I just think we should stick to our policy, acknowledge it, and read it. But
I agree with Stephanie, but I also think there needs to be a policy discussion that this should go to the policy committee in the sense that online I couldn't find policy DFH, which was referenced. And I mean, it's not a deal breaker, but one thing that is in there is, I mean, I'm very grateful for the donations. Please don't let the public misunderstand what I'm saying here. But there's a donation here for for uniforms for the basketball team. It's a very substantial donation, which again, we're very grateful for. But as most of you have noticed over the years, I'm a process person. And it makes me ask the question of what is the process in which teams are provided uniforms. I'm a believer that if we have a program such as a sports team, we should be providing the base to operate that program, such as uniforms. And on that, we have the boosters club, the sports boosters that help with those. And then on top of it, now we're having a separate donor that is purchasing uniforms outside of the school and outside of the boosters club, which then begs the question of who's selecting the uniforms, or the uniforms needed. You know, there's all of those managerial pieces of it that it may not be an issue now, but will it be an issue in the future when a donor wants to purchase a uniform, and it may not be something that the school likes the uniform that is purchased. So how is that done is the question I'm asking. which I think needs to go to policy.
Yeah, good question. I know in previous years, teachers have had wish lists, and parents from the community come in and may go to Amazon or whatever to buy this, and this. So we've accepted those donations too without policy, you know what I mean?
Right.
But on the basketball uniforms, and a lot of them, as Brian will tell you, some of them are on a 10-year plan, 7-year plan, or 12-year plan. Brian's going 5, sorry, Brian. But somebody may want to do a donation to buy brand new uniforms, you know, before the plan is up. You know what I mean? So I don't have an issue with that, but I think it definitely has to go in front of the athletic director and the principal and the
When they are
superintendent.
provided, when they are donated, who is the authority, if you would, that reviews the uniform and make sure it's appropriate for what the school wants, not necessarily the donor?
No,
And I haven't seen these uniforms. I'm not making a criticism of what this specific one is. I'm looking more down the road for if somebody donates a uniform for a team and now we're stuck with it, is that it may not be what the school wanted. How is that managed?
Well, I will speak to the particular instance that's on the agenda this evening, in that the organization worked directly with the athletic director. The athletic director reviewed our policy about advertising in schools to make sure that there was no logo, that it met all the other uniform standards that we have for other teams. And moving forward, that would be the exact same process we would use.
So why wouldn't we use the Booster Club? I thought that was what the purpose of the Boosters Club was for.
Brian, we did reach out to them.
Yep.
Just like we did for football, just like we did for softball, just like we did for baseball. All the uniforms are on a cycle. And when Rick got here, to Tony's point, some of them were, outdated. Some of the uniforms we have, if you only had 10 kids involved in a sport, or 15, and then you jump up to a very large number, obviously that bumps them up a little bit in the line. But the last 4 sets or 5 sets are, I mean, between boys basketball, 6 sets we've had, they have come to the athletic director. We have not solicited in any way, shape, or form. Each time that's happened, Rick Sinclair's the point on that, with what the colors have to be, what the design has to be, et cetera, to meet with compliance of what we have as a school. And to Dr. Sargent's point, there's certain things you can't have on those uniforms. He'd also make sure that happens. So, but these are this was unsolicited, just like the last 5 or 6 are. We don't go out and ask. Usually they have an interest in the sport or have a grandchild or whatever the case may be, and they would like to see them in a uniform for the site. So.
In the same token, and I'm grateful it's being provided, but within the policy it says items such as these that are generally distributed by companies or organizations through its public relations program. I'm not sure this is part of the public relations program. So I mean, there's things within the policy I think that need to be looked at that brings it up to date on the way in which we currently accept gifts for this. So again, I'm not saying I don't like the fact that we received a gift. I think that our policies need to reflect how we're managing receiving those gifts and managing how those are organized.
Okay, do you want to make a motion then to put it in front of the policy committee for a review?
I don't know if we need a motion for that. I think it's just a good suggestion.
Right.
And I would make a motion for you, Tony, just to acknowledge the donations that are recognized according to policy. So my motion is for you as the chair to read off and acknowledge these donations. I don't believe it requires a vote.
Do I have a second for that motion, or do I just read them off?
Second.
Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor? Okay. So, I guess I'm moving, no, I'm not moving, I'm just accepting the donations, $500 to 2 Durham School classrooms from Brent Hartley, $550 approximate value of 15 winter coats for students in need at the Durham School, $798 to the Durham School from the Hannaford Helps School Programs. Thank you, Brett. No, that's different one. $3,031 for the Herman Middle School from the Hannaford Help School Program, $3,237.82 for the Herman HS Girls Basketball Uniforms by Northeast Transport Incorporated, $417 in school supplies for Donors Choose, 50 pairs of hand-knitted mittens from Wanda Levitt, estimated value at $1,000, and a vision screener from the Lions Club, estimated value $8,000. So thank you for all these donors, and Jody, could you make sure the letters go out for these people? Thank you. All right, now we're moving to approve the following tuition agreements for the 2025-26 school year. Go ahead, Bob, what do you got there?
We're using student numbers to protect privacy. 3 of the tuition agreements are for students attending the high school. 1 is for a student attending the elementary school, and both in previous school committee newsletters and communications from me, you've been made aware of the more specific details regarding these agreements.
Again, I go back to policy on it. It's a process. It's the first time I've seen that we've had to approve the superintendent's agreements. So I looked it up in policy JFAB, and there's nothing that says it requires our approval.
And you're right, superintendent agreements do not go before a school committee, but a tuition contract where a superintendent's agreement has been denied by the resident superintendent, and yet that family still wants their child to attend here, then we look at the policy about non-resident students. Is there room in the class? Is there room in the program? Is this in the best interest of the student, and does it further enrich our school community? And then we are able to provide a tuition contract. The state identifies the amount annually that contract entails, and it is school committee practice to approve contracts. And again, through my conversation with our school attorneys, they said that these tuition agreements needed to go before the board.
So then if it's our position that we approve all contracts, then policy JFAB needs to be updated to indicate that it needs to be a contract that is accepted by the school committee, because it isn't in there.
I mean, at this time, I view this as the role of the superintendent and not needed for the school committee because it's not part of the policy. If we want to amend the policy moving forward, I can see that, but I don't know what we're really approving. I understand that we've gotten some of the details, but I view it as the role of the superintendent and doesn't require our additional approval.
What did our lawyer say? Didn't we reach out?
On one of the agreements, I needed to be extra careful with my language, and so I shared the agreement with our school board attorney who approved what I had written and said, don't forget this needs to be approved by your board.
But again, I just go back to, we don't even know what's within the agreement if it's not standardized to what they all are.
It was a reduced time frame.
I agree that absolutely you would seek out the guidance from him on it, but then that would be enough.
I will leave this in the committee's hands as a superintendent. When I need direction, I'll reach out to the attorneys, and because I'm not an attorney myself, I have always taken their guidance and brought it back. And so this is why I brought it back to you. If you feel you'd like to do differently, that is certainly within your prerogative.
Mr. Chair, if we want to table it until next time so that we can see further details, I don't have any idea with what I'm approving.
Okay, I don't have an issue with that, so.
It doesn't change what's happening.
Does tabling in affect any
The students are currently attending. The parents are currently paying monthly tuition with the exception of one, which was the special situation that prompted me reaching out to the attorney. There, you have all the details. There's nothing else that is going to be shared that would enlighten you any further.
I don't know how the attorney's asking us to do more than what's in policy. Our role is to follow policy.
I had a question. What standard does the school use to approve or disapprove of a tuition agreement?
So when we are approached with a tuition request, and that usually means that several other avenues have already failed at that point. It's the superintendent's agreement that's the first attempt for a family whose child is not living in our community to attend school here. That superintendent agreement needs to go to the resident superintendent first. If that superintendent agrees, then that person reaches out to me and we have a conversation about, this is okay with me or is it okay with you? But if the resident superintendent says, I think it's in the best interest of their community to not recommend a superintendent agreement, then it really goes no further. So in each of these instances, that has happened. The superintendent agreement has not moved forward. Sometimes families just decide to stay in their home district. In this instance, we've had families who have decided they really wanted their children to attend Herman schools, and then there's been the formal request by the family themselves. And they reach out to me, I take their information, understand their desire, and then have a conversation with the appropriate building administrator about what's the background of the student, what's the academic progress of the student, and then we, after that decision is made, if we decide that this is appropriate for this school year, and it's a one-year opportunity where the parents must provide transportation on their own, then we move forward with the arrangement. As I said earlier, the state identifies the tuition. It's not something that is a local control. The state will decide the new monthly tuition in December that we will retroactively apply back to September of this year. So right now we're working on 2024-25 numbers until the state gives us updated, and then we'll apply that back. I can't speak to why you haven't seen tuition contracts before. As I said, once I knew from our attorneys that this was something that needed to be approved by the board, then we pulled the other ones that have come up for this year and added them in.
If I may, we typically don't, this is very unusual. So we haven't had a lot of private pay tuition in the past either. So that's why you're seeing them this year versus the superintendent's agreement, which are done at the superintendent level.
What's the motion on the table? I've lost track.
I tabled it, but honestly, to be clear, I have no problem with the superintendent approving these agreements. I'm confused as to why it's coming to us. That's my question. And if she's getting guidance that way, then we need to update policy to reflect that.
So are we saying that it's not in policy JFAB? I don't have the policy in front of me.
I could not find it when I looked at it this afternoon. I could not find it. It required our approval. So based off of what Mrs. Euler said, then where are we on the motions? Because I'm willing to make a motion to approve the tuition agreements. with the agreement that the policy committee will review this and update this policy and have a first draft to us for the next meeting. Because the sticking point is we're trying to stick to policy. It's not that we oppose the agreement. I think that's what I'm hearing from Stephanie, right? You don't oppose the agreement either.
No, I just don't know why we have to vote,
Right.
to be honest.
Somebody give me a motion.
Well, Mrs. Euler did.
I had one out there to table it, I'll retract it.
Go ahead. No, what, I don't, that's, if you guys want to table, it's fine with me, I don't care.
Tabling it doesn't change that these students are attending here, they're approved by the superintendent. It just allows us time to properly document what we're doing.
Did you make a motion, Brian, to approve the,
I did
approve
not.
can we do a motion to approve the tuition agreements for 25-26 school year with the caveat of what you said about sending it to the policy committee?
We already have a motion on the table, so we have to retract that one first before we can make another. I don't know if there was a second.
Did we get a second on the table motion? Nobody seconded it, so we don't technically don't have one.
Okay,
Okay, so you guys want to try another one?
I'll do a motion to approve the tuition agreements for 25-26 school year. The four listed.
And you wanted to send it to policy, back to
Yeah.
policy also?
Yeah, I think with that caveat, I don't know if we have to do that now or we can do that after, however you guys want to do it procedurally.
I prefer you do it now as part of the motion, so that it
Yeah.
ensures that it goes to policy.
We'll do that now.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any other discussion?
So the motion is to approve the tuition agreements as presented, and that policy JFAB will be returned to us next month for a first reading to ensure there's an amendment that includes the process we used tonight.
Correct, that's what I understood.
Is that what we are all understanding?
Okay, any other discussion? You okay with that, Stephanie? That motion?
Sure.
Okay. All those in favor? All those opposed?
I'm just gonna abstain because it's tuition,
Gotcha.
budget and tuition.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, now that we got through that, the governance, reading of policies.
As Mrs. Kowal indicated, we have a recommendation for second read approval on the policies listed, I through V. Four of them are for abolishment due to redundancy and stronger, more accurate language in existing policy. And one is the adoption of the temperature standards for schools, which is in response to recent legislative action requiring school districts to establish that policy.
Motion for the second reading of those 5 listed.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, any other discussion?
I do.
Okay.
I have a note. Policy JKAA and AA-R are the repetitive or policies that they're repetitive. There's been some legal changes this year that I assume this is why this was brought up. So has JKAA and AA-R been reviewed for the legal updates? Or do they include those legal updates already? Because we haven't seen them.
They have been reviewed. We ran both of those, actually all of the policies, but especially the 2 existing ones from 2024 and 21 by Mr. Nason, as much of this language is related to students with special education and special service needs. And those policies are accurate and would remain on our policy bank.
So they're compliant with current law?
They are.
Okay. That was the only question I had. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, so any other discussion?
I had, on EBBD, the temperature one. I think it's the wrong statutory reference. I don't know if that was corrected.
We were gonna add through 24.
Okay.
And thank you for that.
And then, I guess two other things, like when you read this, like I personally don't have any issue with the policy as written. It's fine with me. I just don't know if it meets the statutory requirement. Because it looks like the statutory contemplates a minimum and mandatory temperature, as if you're supposed to, list the minimum temperature at the school and the maximum temperature, which sounds silly, but it's almost like that's what the statute says, unless I'm reading the statute wrong. So I don't know if anybody else caught that.
I caught that it was very vague, but if it wasn't vague, we'd probably have to close the school down 4 or 5 times in late May and early June. So
I'm not gonna like argue this because I don't have a strenuous opinion on it. I just, as long as you guys. Also, I think there's language in there that we're supposed to run this by. Did we consult with the department? Because I think that's in the statute as well.
We did, and the department provided sample language to us.
Okay, no, that's all I got. Thank you.
okay, any other discussion? Okay, all in favor? Good. All set. And now, first reading of policy, JOA.
Motion to approve to abolish JOA.
Seconded.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. All right, personnel, go ahead. Oh, we're gonna add something.
The resignations are for school committee awareness. Going to letter B, employment, in addition to my recommendation to employ Jean Brooks as a custodian, we're also adding the adjustment, which is to recommendation to employ Vicki Devine as special services administrative assistant effective on or about December 1st.
Move to approve employment as presented.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Got it. All right, go ahead on co-curricular.
These are the listed recommendations for both volunteers and head coach and coaching assistants. High school is the first batch, and then the middle school is the smaller batch that goes on to the next page.
For the high school, I move to approve the recommendations listed with extracting to do separately Matt Kenny and David King.
Okay, and Matt, you doing the volunteer?
Both of them.
Oh, both of them, okay.
Second.
Okay, so with those three out, that's the motion, and we get a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Oh, I had a question. Just because I'm not clear, what's the wellness ambassador? Is that
Wellness ambassador was in the was a role last year as well. The teacher who had taken that on has declined the opportunity. This is a person first and foremost who communicates health benefit information and wellness initiatives with our school faculty in a way that brings some cost reduction in our benefits program. But we've talked about also expanding it to having other wellness, like a wellness fair, or some opportunities for staff to engage in nutritional seminars or physical activity, things that for any of us who work in organizations, a healthy community means not only good attendance from everyone and a positive spirit and a positive community, but it also usually results in lower healthcare costs, which also has a financial benefit.
Thank you. Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Good, Jody. Let's do Matt Kenny now, varsity baseball. We'll do them individually. Matt Kenny, varsity baseball coach.
That was approved, that shouldn't have been on, for varsity baseball, that was approved at August 4th, that shouldn't have been on this agenda.
Okay,
It
so-
was,
so
it
that's
should
a-
just be the volunteering for
All right.
basketball.
So we'll take
Thank you,
that.
Jody.
Thank you, Jody. Okay, we'll do Matt Kenny now, volunteer boys basketball assistant.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? All set, Jody?
Mhm.
All right, and now we'll do David King, volunteer indoor track assistant.
So moved.
Second. Okay. Any discussion?
Yeah, this one is a personal one for me, and I'm going to abstain my vote on this one. I'm really proud of my daughter for sticking up for herself and to talking to administration about the situations that she's been through. And there may be other girls that don't dare to stand up, so I'm proud of Mackenzie for doing that. The behavior she's witnessed is not acceptable, so I'll abstain myself from the vote.
Okay, any other discussion?
This is where, I'm just trying to figure out what I can say. Can we motion to table those?
You can.
Well, that may be appropriate to figure out what that was about.
Okay, I retract my motion to approve.
John, I would assume if,
Oh, no, John hasn't
oh,
taken
sorry.
back his.
I'll take back my second.
Okay.
Unless Gene had more to say.
No, I would assume like if we're gonna table it and then potentially come back next time, that we would probably have to do something in executive session, but I guess we could cross that bridge later. Because we can't talk openly about it probably. That's why
Actually, I may invite her to come and share her experience if we'd like. If she was willing. I think it's important, and I'm really proud of her for standing up for herself.
I'm agreeing with Gene that we're coming up on a line here.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'll move to table.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Which is fine.
Actually, I'm abstaining.
You already
I'm
abstained.
abstaining.
Okay, correct, good catch. All right,
The middle school.
move to approve the superintendent's recommendation to employ following 2025-26 Herman Middle School co-curricular and athletic positions.
Second.
Okay, all right, I made a motion by mistake, but that's all right. We'll
No,
still-
you can make a
I'm going with
motion.
it. I know. I've tried to refrain from that, but it's on record now, so. Any other discussion? All those in favor? And Debbie's abstaining. Good.
Middle school.
Okay, old business, not new business, policy JIC. Go ahead.
Well, I was looking at this, the law in Title 20A, according to Maine state, law in the Maine revised statutes. I'm specifically referencing Title 20A, Section 1001, which is the school board duties. And then when you look at Section 15 and 15A, it says that the school board is responsible for ensuring that school officials inform, the key word being inform, students, parents, and community members of the student code of conduct. You see that similar language in 15A to ensure the administration informs students, parents, and school personnel of district-wide school disciplinary policies. Again, the key word being informed. And when you look at, and again, I'm approaching this strictly from a policy point of view. This is not any indication about what the school is or isn't doing. I'm just looking at the language of this particular policy. And now when we look at JIC and JICK, and we look at that closely, you look at the whole thing, it really talks more about dissemination of the student code of conduct. The student code of conduct shall be distributed to students, parents, and staff through handbooks and or other methods deemed appropriate by the superintendent and building administrators. Similarly, you see that kind of same language in JICK with the dissemination of the policy. Superintendent will be responsible for providing this policy and associated administrative procedures and the names of persons responsible for implementing the policy and procedure at the school level in writing to students, parents, school employees, and volunteers in handbooks on the school unit's website, and by such other means as may be determined by the superintendent. So, just the distinction between those two words, I think is a bigger deal. Informing the students, I think, is more than dissemination. Dissemination, in my opinion, is more passive. The goal is to make people aware of something. But I think when you're informing the student, you're going a step further. And again, I'm approaching this from a policy point of view. Because I think when you're informing somebody, you're actually trying to actively educate the reader or listener with the factual information. I know this school disseminates this information, and I'm being told that the school also informs the students, but I think as a matter of policy that we are statutorily mandated at a school committee to inform the students, parents, and community members of the student code of conduct. And I think that we can go a step further than what we're going from a policy language point of view. Like, I don't really have an idea if the students read the handbook as it pertains to the student code of conduct. I imagine we got to look at it probably separately from elementary level, middle school level, high school level. Obviously, those are all different. I think statutorily, it looks like 6th graders and up are treated differently than the 5th graders and down. I'm not suggesting that 5th graders on down should be reading the handbook. I am suggesting in middle school it's probably time for middle schoolers to become aware, definitely in high school. And again, I'm not suggesting they're not. I just don't know to what level. I don't know if it's consistent. So basically, I have no idea if students read the handbook as it pertains to the student code of conduct and the expectations that we're trying to set with the code of conduct, and frankly, the culture that we want at the school as it pertains to how we will treat our fellow students. Nor do I have any idea if some of these other methods for disseminating information to students actually touch on all areas of the code of conduct, or if there's a uniform consistency across all the classrooms. We know some adults do not read contracts to their house, their car, their phone plan, but we expect students to review the code of conduct without any verification if they reviewed it, understood it, or had questions. I think we need to do more informing, more active informing. In conclusion, I asked the committee chair to have the policy subcommittee review the policy language in code JIC and JICK in order to meet this committee's statutory mandate of ensuring that students, parents, and community members are actively and regularly informed of the student code of conduct and that the information is not merely disseminated and made available. My initial thought, to the extent it matters, is a detailed presentation of the entire code, JIC and JICK for grades 6 and up, along with time for questions, some kind of testing, some way of analyzing whether or not they understood it, review any wrong answers. I would think that this should occur fairly regularly. If we're introducing this in August of a given school year, it's probably not a bad idea to reinforce it maybe in the new year because it's a long school year. I would love to inform the students often of the code of conduct and have the expectation of the culture here at the school regarding student conduct ingrained at a very early age. We need to do this to achieve our mission of preparing students for personal success in college, career, and community. That's all I have. Thank you.
Actually, Gene, tag on with Gene. I agree with your point, and you highlighted something that people don't read their cell phone contracts. Yet we expect our students to be versed in an 8-page student code of conduct. And I look at the amendment of February of 2025, and without going into minutes, I have no doubt that I voted in favor of this document in February of 2025. However, recently I've worked with United Technology Center and reviewed their code of conduct, and the spirit of the code of conduct and the way in which we have ours written in comparison to UTC. And I think we can learn a little bit from them. And there are also some areas within our code of conduct that I just don't think should be written out the way they are. You know, we spend, code of conduct is what we expect of our students. We have other policies that discuss the ramifications of it. Yet we dedicate many pages of what the disciplinary actions will be, which I don't think is really appropriate for the code of conduct because it is covered in other policies. So I would also like to have this JIC sent back to policy committee and have them give a strong look at the disciplinary section of whether it should be in JIC because it is already clearly written in JKD, removal and of disruptive students as it relates to code of conduct is in JKAA, which was discussed earlier tonight when we removed other policies. It also gets into special services, which I don't think are appropriate for a code of conduct, and referrals to law enforcement authority. How that is presented in a code of conduct, I think, should be further looked at. And then the cross-references also need to be updated to reference JKAA, JKAAR, and others that I might have missed. So I agree with you, Gene, that I would like to have the policy committee look at this again.
All good points. Our principals do a great job with the discipline, but I'm sure they would just as soon have us relook at the policy to make sure we're covering all the bases. And the informing part is probably the most important part. So,
yeah, and again, I'm not criticizing the disciplinary actions that are outlined in the code of conduct. I'm questioning whether it is appropriate to have them outlined in this detail within the code of conduct, and then again in other policies such as JK, which only complicates our administrative duties of when we update JK, we have to remember to go back to JIC to make sure that those changes have been made. So I think the appropriate references, and not to take away from the disciplinary, but to make the heavy hand in a code of conduct might not, or I don't believe it is the tone that we want to be setting with our students. We want to show that there's ramifications if you don't follow the code of conduct, but the code of conduct is the right thing to do.
Do they sign off on it like they do the athletic code of conduct?
that's a good question. We got a lot of nods.
And we spend the first 2 weeks of school, you typically have like an hour of homeroom in those first week or 2 weeks, and you go over it with your teacher, you read it line by line, go over what it means, all that extra stuff.
Thank you.
And then you sign off on it as a class.
Perfect. So Debbie, are you and John all set with that?
Sounds good.
All right, perfect.
Look at it.
All right, the only other motion I need is adjournment.
Motion to adjourn at 8:02 or 3 p.m.
Okay, I'll accept that unless noted.
Did that include JIC and JICK?
Yeah.
We talked about
Yes.
code of conduct and rules.
Yes, both of them.
Thank you.
No, but it's not great.
Jody, thank you for battling through.